What it do? This is your brother, J International, tapping back in for another one. But before we start this video today, I want to first inform everybody that I do have a book out on Amazon, and it's a book, basically it's part memoir and part how-to. So this is my book right here. Let's see if I can get it. It's on Amazon right now, Kindle, and also paperback. Now, it's not a long read. You know, this is my first book, and it's based off of my experience, you know, in traveling the world, how I came from the streets of Oakland and was able to travel to over 6 continents except Antarctica. And it's called The Art of Low Cost Travel, as you can see. But yes, basically this book will give you some guidance on how to travel, you know, ways that you can travel on a budget, because, you know, a lot of us, we not balling out. We don't have, you know, we're not rich. A lot of us not wealthy, and we still want to see the world. Well, I wasn't wealthy. I did okay for myself. I was a single man, no response, no children, no none of that. So I was able to figure out ways to travel and take advantage of deals and things like that, and take advantage of the fact that I was an entrepreneur at the time, and I was able to make things happen. So this book right here will teach you, will show you, and will give you some insight on who I am. The Low Cost Art of Travel on Amazon. Go copy your copy. I'll have the link in the description. But today what I want to talk about is this a content creator who I've been watching for a while. I've been watching him. I discovered him a few months ago. This video was a suggestion to me. And it's crazy though, because the things he's talking about, you would think that YouTube would censor it, because YouTube does censor channels. My channel is under a shadow ban. I know this for a fact because, you know, I'm dropping some dope content, and for videos that go from some videos getting thousands, videos only getting 1 or 2 views, and I'm not talking about, pretty much talking about the same stuff that the videos that got thousands of views for. I'm talking about the same stuff. But yeah, so he basically is talking about how, you know, the West is a cult, and his name is Shaid Bolston. I'll also have a link to his video in the description. But this video right here is deep, and he has a lot of deep videos, you know what I'm saying? And it's surprising that YouTube hasn't shadow banned it, but they probably have. But he probably has this when you have a loyal following. So when you have a loyal following, they'll look for you. So he probably just has a loyal following that looks for him. But YouTube, the algorithm did suggest his videos to me. And I just started, you know, watching this video, and he basically, he's in another country, somewhere in he calls it the global South, I believe, but without further ado, let us go ahead and watch this video, and let's tap in. And it's a very deep video. It's going to resonate. It resonated with me. I believe it's going to resonate with you. So without any further ado, let's lock in.
The West is a cult. I mean, I've said it before. The West, America, is a cult. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is why Americans specifically are immediately identifiable, no matter where they are. You know, why they really come across as strange and brainwashed to everyone else in the world if they travel, you know? If you interact with an American, you genuinely feel like you're talking to someone who just has a really insular frame of reference, you know? A fabricated sense of reality, a sense of reality that only makes sense within the American cult compound. It's always a non-interaction interaction, you know what I mean? Like no actual communication takes place in those interactions. It's like they have a stencil, you know? Like they're looking through a stencil, they're looking through a filter, and everything that comes from them adheres to that stencil, and nothing that does not adhere to that stencil can reach them. That's programming. That's what that is. That's brainwashing, you know? A cult is never going to tell you that they're brainwashing you. They won't call their indoctrination programming. They'll call it deprogramming, you know? They'll call it deprogramming. A cult will tell you that everything that you've ever been taught, everything that you have ever felt, everything that you have ever known, your whole view of reality, all this time has been satanic. And we, here in the cult, we will dismantle all the lies and we will guide you to the ultimate truth. That's how they'll put it. Well, that's the West. That's so-called liberalism. And what they want to deprogram is your fitra, your innate human nature. And it's escalatory. Again, just like a cult, it's escalatory. You know how these sorts of, well, I won't name any, but you know these weird sort of insular, secretive cults that exist. They have this sort of tiered system of revealing so-called higher and deeper truths. It's when they let you know what the cult's really about. You know, they don't start right off the bat with the really bonkers stuff. You know, they don't tell you about the mothership the moment that you walk through the door. You know, they'll tell you about hacks for making you more productive that the cult can teach you, how you can be more centered, heal your trauma, you know, make you more positive and so on. But once you buy in and you get into that ecosystem, then you start to move up the ranks within their internal hierarchy. And then you start getting told things that you didn't hear at the beginning, like the cult leader is a messiah, you know, or we're all descended from alien spirits, or what have you. That's when they start to get the weird stuff. They tell you to let go of your relationships and so on. Then you move up more and find out that you're supposed to share your spouse with the rest of the cult. You know, it gets weirder the higher you go. We're all preparing right now for our departure to another galaxy. Here, have some Kool-Aid. It escalates. That's how they go. That's how they do. And the longer these cults go, the more permissive they get within the cult, the more corrupt, the more debauched, the more depraved they get. Well, again, that's the West. That's America. Honestly, if you look at it that way, you can't unsee it. They're trying to deprogram your fitra, and it is escalating. And just like in many cults, they focus on women. They focus on brainwashing and indoctrinating and corrupting women. Through all sorts of moral inversion. They teach that everything that's moral is immoral. That there's shame in dignity and dignity in shame. It's inversion. Modesty and chastity are oppression. Exploitation and objectification are liberatory. This is a cult deprogramming your fitra, deprogramming your nature. And it's escalating. And you know, one of the arguments that cults always use is that their members are happy. They're content. They're comfortable. You know, they drank the Kool-Aid and they like the Kool-Aid.
Man, that's real. You know, I feel like we are in a cult, and you know, here in the West, I was in that cult, a member of the cult. But you know, as I started to study, as I started to travel. And as I started to, you know, social media, watching different content creators, listening to different great minds, and I started to wake up, and I took that red pill, man. Took that red pill, and I ain't been the same since, you know. And it's hard to go back. It's like when you watch the movie The Matrix. The guy is given the option. I believe he's like, hey, I want to take this blue pill so I can forget about everything. And I just want you know that I'm in a matrix, but I want this type of lifestyle, you know. And I think there are a lot of people that know they're in the matrix, but they just say, hey, as long as I can have this type of lifestyle and I'm not like the people at the bottom that's experiencing that type of lifestyle, I'm good. I'll swallow the blue pill. But what happens when you swallow the red pill, but you want to have a certain type of existence, but you can't, because certain things or certain barriers, the way the system is rigged is holding you back. But we definitely in the West are told to be happy with the way things are, and we drown. He'll get into that in the video, but we are told to accept the cult and that everything is okay, and that once we totally buy into the cult, we can move up. Let us go.
So who are you to call them brainwashed and enslaved? But see, it's all about framing and prioritization. So like the West, Western liberalism, America, etc., they deprioritize and they negate every metric of well-being besides so-called freedom, right? Nothing matters more than freedom. That's the official doctrine. So as long as cult members feel that they have this freedom, then nothing else is important. And they can't even articulate any dissatisfaction that they might feel, you know? It's just like someone who has bought into the internal logic of a cult. That's Americans. No matter how objectively horrible, no matter how objectively abnormal things are within your compound, you can rationalize it. You can anesthetize yourself to it because you have absorbed the cult logic, the cult doctrine that makes it all make sense to you. You wake up every day in America already in debt. Before your eyes even open, you owe on your house, you owe on your car, you owe on your education, you owe for your health. Your whole life is chained to subscription services, debt slavery, wage slavery, subscription slavery. You know, your whole existence is leased. It's on loan from the moment you're born.
It's not true, y'all. It's just not true. Like, we are debt slaves, man. I'm a debt slave. I bought into the American dream. Go to school, study hard, and I get good grades. Everything would just work out for me. I would have this, you know, the house with the white picket fence, the cars. That I bought into that, and because a lot of us don't come from wealth, especially in the Black American community, FBA community, we are told by our parents and our grandparents, go to school, but they can't fund this education. They only thought about themselves, particularly the baby boomers, and I have a video talking about that. But they only care about themselves. They think they're still on that mindset. You see, they haven't caught up with the times. The problem with the baby boomers, they haven't caught up with the times. They're still on that mindset that they feel that things are the way they are for them. They didn't have to deal with this mass influx of immigrants. They didn't have to deal with automation and AI and all these things that are happening. So they were able to go to college and get some random degree, stay at a job for 30, 40 years, get a pension and all that. And even the ones that worked in factories, they were able to work in the factory and support their whole family off of one income. So we buy into that. We can't afford, we go into debt. Then we get out of college with a degree that we can't even use. And we got this debt. So we are enslaved to our debt because we have to pay our debt, and the interest still keep going up. And you have to take whatever type of BS job that you can. That BS job ain't gonna pay you enough to survive. It's only gonna pay you enough to live from check to check. And so you just caught up in the system, and that's the way they want it. That's the way they want it. That's the way it was designed by those that are in power. Let's continue.
From the moment you're born, you are plugged into a system that feeds on you financially, psychologically, spiritually, and you're told that all of that is freedom. You're told it's the best thing that ever happened to humanity. It's the best system there is. And you should be grateful. You should be proud. Tell me that isn't cult-like. You live in a bubble of euphemisms. You work like a slave. You sell your time, which is what your life is, by the way. It's time. Your presence in this world is nothing but time. And actually, you don't even sell it, because selling it would imply that you have a choice, but you don't have a choice to sell your time. Do you understand? You have to. That's what I mean. You're literally born in debt. Because from the moment that you enter the world, if you live in the West, if you live in America, well, you have to start justifying your existence within the prevailing profit model. You know, whatever intrinsic value that you have as a human being, whatever purpose you might have in this life, is subordinated by necessity to a job that you don't care about for people who you don't even know, in a company that would replace you tomorrow with a machine or with AI or with a robot if they could. Your dignity is tied to your productivity. And if you don't produce, you don't deserve to eat. If you don't produce, you don't deserve shelter. You don't deserve peace. You're only worth whatever you can generate monetarily for someone else. So you cope. You consume, you scroll, you eat, you buy things that you don't need on credit to reward yourself with the cold comfort of frivolous goods. You know, reward yourself for all the hard work that you're doing, only to keep the cycle going. You bury yourself in entertainment that makes you feel a little bit less numb for just a few hours. Imagine, the only way that you can feel anything similar to being alive is to watch fiction. But you think that's normal because that's what everyone in the cult does. You live alone with little to no human interaction, no human connection. You walk through crowds like a ghost. Your family, most likely, is scattered, is broken, is estranged, again, just like a cult. You know, these are fundamental things that cults do. They break all your relationships. They alienate you from your family. You know, even your friends, most likely, are just avatars on the screen. Curated versions of people pretending to not be as miserable as you are, you know, with their Instagrammable perfect lives that no one's actually living. No one lives like that. That's called lateral reinforcement of cult dogma. Your body is malnourished but overstimulated. You're chemically altered from morning to night, coffee to wake up, pills to concentrate, sugar to cope and make you feel better, weed to make you relax, porn to escape, and then melatonin to fall asleep. You don't even know what it feels like to be natural anymore, to live naturally without chemical augmentation. You don't remember what it's even like to be human, because this is the only version of a human that the cult defines as human. The cult brands approved addiction as self-care, you know, dysfunction as beautiful. This is a cult. Sex isn't sacred anymore. It's not even intimate. It's a commodity. It's a performance. It's a sport. You know, you're taught that your body is your sole value. Desirability is your whole identity, especially if you're a woman. You're trained to be attractive, not decent, to be desired, not loved. In the West, you treat people, relationships, like consumables, and then you wonder why you feel disposable, why you are disposable. Because cults always flatten people to pure function. You can't have anything personal, anything intimate, anything private. And you know, every cult almost eventually becomes a sex cult. I mean, the People's Temple, the Branch Davidians, the Children of God, Nexium, obviously. They almost always go this way. Cults almost always go this way. That's why I said you have to pay attention to what Western popular culture is doing to women. You have to pay attention to that. Because cult governance depends on dissolving personal borders. And sexual access is the crowning test of loyalty. Because that violates the most intimate frontier between people. I mean, look at your culture, so-called. Honestly, you need to just remove the last 3 letters of that word. It's not a culture, it's a cult. I mean, if you look at how cults do, you'll start with platitudes about free.
There you have it, man. I don't see no lies in anything he said, man. Like, and I can only speak from personal experience, like especially the things that we do to cope with living in this westernized fail of a culture. I myself, I have to cope. I have to, if you're in debt, if you're stuck on the hamster wheel, that race, you don't see a way out. How do you keep going on? How do you keep going on unless you cope? Because some people say F this stuff and they just, that's it, right? But some people, they don't have the courage to do that. They don't have the courage because that's, you have to, to just underlie yourself like that. That takes some courage, but we feel it. We may feel it at times like, man, I just wish this would just end. But so we cope, and myself included, we cope. I cope with porn, watching porn, even though you don't need porn. You may have an active sexual life, but you're escaping me, speaking from experience, escaping in that porn, escaping in the masturbation, release, or escaping with alcohol or weed, as he said. These are all, negative coping mechanisms. Other people escape with consumerism. Other people escape with mindless scrolling on social media, or watching a bunch of TV or eating a bunch of unhealthy food. They call it comfort food. Like, these are all ways that people are escaping. And a lot of people don't even realize that. I remember I went in the store that I frequent, and I asked a woman, we talk from time to time. I asked a woman that was helping me, and I asked her, so what do you do to, release or cope? And I guess she was, kind of stunned by that question that I asked her. Because I was buying some alcohol. I'm gonna be honest, I was buying some alcohol. Like, yeah, this is my coping mechanism, But I was like, so what do you do to escape and cope? And she didn't understand it at the time. But later on, let's say a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm back in the same store, getting my coping mechanism. And she's like, remember that question you asked me? I was like, oh yeah, about the coping. She's like, yeah, like I watch TV. I'm assuming she probably watched, but she also says she travels. She's traveled, but she's waiting till she retires, which is in a few years. But yeah, we all have to cope with this society in the West, where we are told we are told to pursue these things. We try to pursue them, and we work hard, but we know that no matter how hard we work, no matter how much of our time we sacrifice, a lot of us are going to be stuck in this living check to check reality. So we're going to have to cope. Even the elite, they cope. They cope with their wild sexual parties. They got ways they cope. And it's funny because you look at some of these videos on YouTube about these people that live, in I've been watching videos like on people that live like in these tribes like in Africa. And they seem so happy. Like they don't have none of the stuff that we have. They gotta hunt for their food. They live in like mud huts, but they all have smiles on their face, right? Because they ain't been corrupted by the West. Now they trying to bring that, because these people that are making these videos are coming from the West to record their life, but these people don't have nothing, like none of the stuff that we have. All these gadgets, this laptop that I'm using, these smartphones, you know, they don't have none of this stuff, but they are happy. That's something that we don't have in the West because we were fed this lie. You know what I mean? We were fed this lie. So I'm gonna play a few more minutes, then
love and whatnot. Well, as a society, you've already gone through that phase in the 1960s. And of course, then that free love idea promotes suspending judgment on all forms of sexuality and promiscuity, normalizing all sorts of behaviors. And then it moves on to sexual healing within the cult. I mean, that concept, sexual healing, was already established in the public mind through song. And then that concept, that further normalizes all sorts of practices, even truly perverted and dark practices. It promotes that as therapeutic, you know, living out your wildest, darkest fantasies without ever actually addressing the sick thing inside you that makes you even have those fantasies. That's never addressed. It's just, well, the idea is it's better for you to do this consensually with someone rather than to force yourself on someone. Force someone else to do this dark fantasy that you have by force. And that's framed as healthy. Think that through. The culture, the cult, does not help you purge yourself of toxic urges. It provides you pathways for acting on them. Because as far as the cult is concerned, all those toxic urges that you have are just levers for creating dependency, levers for creating addiction. And then the way cults normally go, traditionally, they start to move basically into turning cult members into sexual slaves for those at the top of the cult hierarchy, with all the members vying for their favor. And I mean, that's all across your social media. You know, highest bidder access, women objectifying themselves, women sexualizing themselves for sponsorship. And again, that's lateral indoctrination reinforcement between women.
OnlyFans. OnlyFans.
In this case, normalizing degradation, sexualization, objectification, pornification, the flattening of women to their function inside the cult. That's your culture. That's all across social media. And like I've talked about before, women and girls are made immeasurably more neurotic, more depressed, more anxious, more insecure, all because of social media.
Yeah, y'all. So we'll end it on that. You know what I'm saying? But I'll drop the link. Fair use. Shout out to Shaheed Bolson. I watch his videos all the time. But yeah, man, we are in the code. And basically we have all these coping mechanisms that we're using to deal with the cult, this cult reality in the West that we live in. I talked about it in a previous video, how consumerism is the American dream. So that being said, it's good for us to travel. It's good for us to see different realities outside of the West. I would suggest when you travel, get outside of the West. Go to countries outside of the West so you can have a different perspective. Again, I provide some tips in my book. That being said, it's your brother Jay International. Tap back in once again. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. I'll let y'all later. Peace.